Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for coming this late evening program, the final program for our Mansfield conference today. Tonight, we are co-sponsoring this evening program with our dear friends, the Montana World Affairs Council. I can't begin to say enough about how the World Affairs Council has been a tremendous help to us in the planning process of this very complicated conference, and certainly the leadership of Mr. Bob Seidenschwartz and his team, Aubrey and Amy, have been a tremendous help, and thank you very much for all you've done, and if we can give them a hand of applause for helping us out today. Not only the conference, but there's been a lot of other activities that have been going on today and yesterday, including some of our speakers speaking to Hellgate High, Big Sky High. As if you came here earlier, you saw the 160 or so C.S. Porter Middle School students. But in addition to them, here on campus, university, our Global Leadership Initiative students, there was a special program by Fakra Kearney, our good friend from all the way from Kenya, spoke with them as well. And a lot of media coverage as well. Bob was instrumental in getting us on KGVO leading up to this conference, and a lot of our speakers were interviewed on that, and of course we were on KUFM. And so thank you very much, and this was truly a community effort, people from all corners of this city, of the state, coming together for this success. And so thank you for a successful first day of conference. And with that, I want to turn it over to my friend, Mr. Bob Seidenschwartz, the president of the Montana World Affairs Council, who will introduce the organization as well as our speakers this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for coming here tonight. A word that needs to be extended, because we have a new member of the Missoula community, and a member that is really enriching what already is a very fertile ground for intellectual, educational, and political interest, and that is to welcome Dr. Abraham Kim and his wife Joanna and his children to Missoula, Montana. He's been here about 5 or 6 months, and Abe was living, we're familiar enough I can call him Abe. Abe was living in Washington, D.C., and I think there was a little trepidation about what was life going to be like in Missoula. Would it be exciting enough? Would I be involved and busy enough? Well, I think he would tell you that yes to all the above. So I would like to, and have our audience extend a warm welcome to Dr. Abraham Kim, the director of the Mansfield Center, for without him, this program would not be here today. I would also like to thank Matthew Olson. Matt's tireless energy and abundance of thought and insight was also instrumental in making this event possible and for you to be here tonight. Mr. Olson. I also want to say I'll be introducing Amy Ryan here in a moment, but truly Amy and Aubrey, who are just the lifeblood of the Montana World Affairs Council. And without them, we would not be able to accomplish what we have. And I think really that is, for me, the lesson and introduction. The council, in many ways, is this beautiful blank canvas. And what we put on that canvas is what reflects back into the community for our students and for our citizens. And the opportunity to be a part of this, to be able to bring a program like this to Missoula, to be able to bring the speakers, to get people to understand how to connect the dots. Really, that's what the council's about. The educational initiatives, the ability to reach out to the business community to help them understand that they're not separate entities, that we are one, and through those joint efforts, we're able to accomplish a great deal. And we had an opportunity, which, of course, you people were not present at the dinner that we just had, and to hear the stories, to hear what really, in many cases, are ordinary people doing extraordinary things. I tend to think it's really extraordinary people doing extraordinary events on behalf of those who do not have a voice. And as you listen tonight to the presenters. As you hear the stories, there's a lot that will make you feel, in some cases, my gosh, what can I do? This seems so hopeless. I didn't realize this was taking place. But there's an awful lot to uplift you, to make you realize that as citizens right here in Missoula, you have an opportunity to make a difference. And I've lived in this town since 1972, so I have a little bit of a sense of what Missoula and Missoulians are about. We get things done, and we come together in a way that few communities that I've been involved with and have had the ability to be around truly are unique. And I know there's places all over the U.S. that are not too dissimilar, but I'm a little biased. This is my home, this is my community, this is where my son was born. As a native New Yorker, please claim me. I've been here since 1972. I still have the accent. I'm sorry about that. And I love my New York roots, but Montana is my home. And the very special people that are here tonight that are going to be talking to you about events that I think all will leave here with a different sense of who they are and what they may be able to do. So without further ado, I want to introduce Amy Ryan. Amy is the Executive Director for the Montana World Affairs Council. She'll give you a little bit more insight to what the Council does and the many initiatives and the outreach that we have here in Missoula, in Montana, and the world. And there are some that may have heard my gravelly voice on KGVO because we do the Council on the radio a couple of times a month. So it's part of our outreach to bring the global community right here. And I had the privilege of having Mr. Kearney, who was calling from Nairobi, Kenya, and Mr. James Pond, who was calling from Ohio, as a precursor to this program. So we kind of know what to do to get it done. So Amy, please come up here and introduce the council to our friends here in Missoula.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you all for joining us. In line with the thank yous, I do want to extend yet another to the Mansfield Center, to Dr. Abe Kim and to Matt Olson and their wonderful team for putting this together. It's truly an honor to have been invited to partner with you, and I appreciate all of you for coming out and being a part of this. So thank you and welcome. Just a little bit about the council, the Montana World Affairs Council. For those of you that don't know, there's many familiar faces, but there's some new ones as well. So I do want to just tell you a little bit about what we do and who we are. We're a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization located right here in Missoula, and we're part of a larger network called the World Affairs Council of America, which is the largest international education nonprofit of its kind in the world. So there are about 90 chapters across 42 different states, and we're the Montana branch, and we are proud to be that. We're the only one in this great state, so we've got large shoes to fill, but we're proud to be doing the work that we are. Our mission is really to provide a nonpartisan platform for global awareness. So we want to create opportunities that give you guys the chance to hear from speakers like we're going to hear from tonight and ask questions and get to know the issues. We don't take sides when there are sides to be taken, but we just want to create a platform for discussion and understanding, and I hope that from that place then, you know, there's peace and moments like this where we can sit together and learn. So some of the programs that we do to fulfill this mission is our Distinguished Speakers program. Similar to these, we have public discussions and business luncheons. We've got one coming up on April 29th with Li Hong, who's with the Chinese Embassy. And we bring in ambassadors and consul generals and authors and experts and many of the people like we're going to hear from this evening. And we also have global education initiatives which focus on high school students mostly. And our largest we just had last month is called Academic World Quest, and this is an opportunity for us to reach out across the state and get kids interested in international affairs through a competition. And we send the winning team to Washington, D.C. with the help of the Dennis and Phyllis Washington Foundation. And this year Hellgate won, so congratulations to our local team. They'll be going to, yay, maybe some here are here in the audience. They'll be going to Washington, D.C. next week to compete at the national competition. So we are honored that they're representing us. And then our newest education initiative is called Council in the Classroom. It was something that we would do here in local high schools with Ethan Batstone, who may be here in the audience, visited Big Sky High School and Hellgate High School this morning and this afternoon, and and gave the kids a lot to think about in terms of human trafficking and how they can get involved. So we're grateful for his participation in that. And we've turned this local piece, which we're called the Montana World Affairs Council, and we were given all the love only here in Montana or in Missoula. So we wanted to live up to our name, and so we've partnered with Inspired Classroom, again with the help of the Washington Foundation, to bring our speakers across the state into high schools who are out beyond our reach of resources right here. So through video conferencing technology, it's an amazing thing. We bring these speakers into classrooms, into Browning and Bozeman and Chinook and Westby, which I had to look up on a map way out there on the East Coast, or on the East Side. And tomorrow, Sarah Simmons, who was this evening's speaker at dinner, will also be giving a talk with some schools tomorrow. So we're really honored that she's giving us some more of her time. And that's just sort of a snippet of what we do with some of the high schools across the state. Again, to try to bring this awareness beyond just the community aspect, but to our future leaders and the next generation. So we, through all of this, have this great opportunity to partner with organizations throughout the state and throughout this local community, such as the Mansfield Center and the University of Montana. So we're grateful that the work we do is finding these synergies. We're hoping to work with the international programs here on campus to do even more. So we're really honored that these two separate organizations can find common ground and do the work that we're doing here today. So I'll close with that we are privately funded with a few small grants and membership and private donations. So if you are interested in becoming a member, we also have internship opportunities available. So I see some university students. If you are a University of Montana student, we open our doors. You can volunteer or intern with us. So all that information is available online. I encourage you to get involved. We have a lot of cool opportunities. We've got a couple interns there in the back if you want to wave. We couldn't do it without the interns. So if you have questions or want to become a member or get involved, I encourage you to see the booth back there. Little plug for that. And you can join our newsletter to hear about the different programs that we host. So, enough about all of that. Now I get the great honor of introducing this evening's speakers. First, we're going to hear from James Pond. James Pond is the founder and CEO of Transitions, an organization restoring the lives of young girls rescued from the sex trafficking through the power of a dream. After serving 8 years in the Marine Corps, intelligence, and 10 years in corporate America, James and his family gave up their lives in the United States and began working to combat sex trafficking in Southeast Asia. Transitions organizes innovative and holistic programs for survivors, which have gained international attention for their professionalism, pioneering spirit, and success. James completed his master's degree at Fuller Theological Seminary in 2004 while doing extensive research on global slavery issues, and has consulted on anti-trafficking projects in Indonesia, Greece, Bulgaria, Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore, India, Moldova. You get the idea. This guy knows what he's talking about. James serves as an advisor to the National Women's Coalition Against Violence and Exploitation, and is a program director and shelter evaluator for Abolition International Shelter Association. He currently lives between Phnom Penh, Cambodia, and it says here Cincinnati, but I've heard rumor he's moving to Tennessee. So this is the last time you have to hear from me. I'm also going to introduce the speaker who will, following him, Prahlad Kumar Dakal. Prahlad is the country director for Nepal of the ISIS Foundation, part of the ISIS group, which is a nonprofit organization which provides services to people living in poverty in Nepal and Uganda. Today, the ISIS Foundation helps over 20,000 people in poverty a year. Before working at ISIS, Prahlad started his career with the Nepal Red Cross. He began as a field worker and later became a training officer, training large numbers of workers and volunteers in both those locations. Prahlad moved on to work for Save the Children UK, initially as a training officer and later as an advocacy program officer. So again, another guy in the know. Prahlad then worked with Voluntary Service Overseas as the program manager of their governance program. He has helped many NGOs, especially those in Nepal, to enhance their capacity to work with and for children. He is a founding board member of Creating Possibilities Nepal and is actively involved in liberating indentured bonded girls, a tradition called calamari, which I believe he'll talk about later. Prahlad has been involved in this movement since 2004. He's got a master's degree in political science and has more than 25 years working experience in the development sector in Nepal and beyond. So, we have two amazing guests, and I am honored to introduce them. And without further ado, James Pond.
All right. Good evening. You know, during this conference, we have heard so much about this issue. We've sort of seen the chain of events from starting as an issue through the legal process to sort of the magnitude of the problem. One of the conversations that we've not yet had is what actually happens to these victims after they've been recovered or rescued. And for the last 10 years, it's been my honor and privilege to work with survivors, to hear their stories, to understand what their needs are, to watch them through their life struggles, and also watch them have some tremendous wins in their lives and to see them succeed and go on to have a new hope and a new beginning. And so tonight, my hope is to share with you a little bit about what that healing process looked like, what the needs of victims are, and maybe give some food for thought as to where we might be going in the near future. A couple of caveats before we begin. One is I do a lot of international travel, so I'm about 3 days off of coming back from Moldova, and I brought back with me a wonderful Moldovan cold. So if my voice gives out, bear with me. The second caveat is I work specifically with children. So I work with girls between the ages of 13 and 18 years old. So we have a very specialized program in what we do, and so I'm going to be talking from that context, but much of what we do is very universal, so it would apply to the same kinds of things in working with boys or working with women in a different context. And we stand on a very delicate precipice here in the United States in working with child victims of sex trafficking. As you guys heard this morning, there's some linkages between our child protective services, our juvenile justice system, and the way that youth are adjudicated through those care systems in terms of finding care. One of the things that I've had the opportunity to do in my history is I've looked at this issue in over 17 different states here in the US. We've done 4 intensive citywide studies in looking at what happens to youth and the number of kids that are actually being trafficked in those cities. So if during the Q&A I know there were some questions about that, I'd be happy to try to answer some of those questions for you. But if you were to ask where we're more effectively serving the needs of survivors and where we're not, in the international world, we're able to do so much more at the moment than we've been able to do for our own citizens right here at home. And so we have some challenges, and my hope is what we've done at Transitions will allow us to sort of project forward in being able to help young women right here in the United States. Just really quickly, the way that we've set up our program, we run 4 core programs. The first one is our Dream Home, and it is a residential treatment program for girls that are 13 to 18 years old that have been sexually trafficked. Now, when we say that a girl has been sexually trafficked and we try to identify what her needs are, I think there's some really important things that we need to understand. One is that there is a composite that we've seen over and over repeating itself in terms of who are these victims. And I would say I'm speaking, like Melissa Farley was earlier, about the 98%. Are there 2% that fall outside of this category and fill some other kinds of criteria? Absolutely. But in 11 countries that I've been to in interviewing these survivors, this is what I've seen. These girls have come from homes that are impoverished. They've come from homes where they've witnessed or been a part of domestic violence in the home. They've been sexually abused by the time they were 6. They've been sexually assaulted by the time they're 11, and they've been trafficked anywhere between the ages of 12 and 14. These are kids that have been exposed to alcoholism, drug abuse, dysfunction in the family, poverty, lack of education, lack of opportunity. And then one of the things I witnessed in Moldova is parents actually working outside of the home, outside of the country, and leaving their children at home to raise themselves. All of these are predicating factors that lead to who are the trafficking victims. So do some of the trafficking victims come from affluent homes? They could. But for the most part, they fit this composite. And in terms of needs, their needs are very universal as well. And when we're talking about children, we're talking about something that's very specific. One of the things that we've learned in recent years is that there's this thing called brain plasticity. Our brains actually grow up until the time we're 25 years old. And so that means that when a child is experiencing trauma at a very young age, including complex sexual trauma as they're approaching puberty and going into their early teen years, that means that something's happening in terms of neutralizing that brain growth and our ability to make clear and concise decisions. And so what's often happened in dealing with children is that we'll ask the child, well, what do you want to do? And the child has no idea what they want to do because they don't have the ability to resonate those kinds of rational decisions that we would be able to make, or that children growing up in a healthy environment might be able to make. So we run the Dream Home. That program runs for 2 years or more as a core program for girls to complete. It's a multi-phase program. What we've done is we've set it up so that it goes in phases, and girls have benchmarks that they need to meet as they graduate from phase to phase. And I'm going to show you guys a video here in a moment that'll give you kind of a visual of what that program looks like. We run the Bridge Project, which is a family outreach program. We found that even families that are involved or complicit in a girl's trafficking are still a critical part of that girl's life. Even if it's helping that girl to develop healthy boundaries with a family, it's still a critical component. And so we have a social work team that goes out, does family and community assessments. They advise our other caseworkers, and we come together with a treatment plan in terms of what it looks like to help that family. It may be providing protection for siblings, it may be providing assistance to the adults, parenting classes or otherwise, but we want to make sure that families are still a part of that equation. The other thing we run is the Star House. We had 4 graduates very early on when we started this program, and we realized they weren't ready to live independently quite yet. They needed kind of this extra step. So we got them this apartment, and it started out as just a very simple program. We'll get an apartment, and we'll assign a social worker to them, and it'll all be great. And so when they saw their apartment, we said, how do you guys feel about this? And they said, well, we feel like we're rock stars, so we called it the Star House. And what it's grown into is it is a transitional placement for girls to actually continue with their program after they've graduated and they're gaining independence. So right now we have college students that are in university right now that will be in that program until they graduate. We have girls that are working in careers that they haven't quite gotten their legs under them yet, and so this program for those folks will last about a year before they go into independent living situations. And then lastly, my wife's vision and brainchild is the Shine Career School. One of the things that we've done, and this is the thing that drives me, is there's certain values when working with survivors that if we don't have, we really need to ask ourselves what we're really doing. When I approached this, I had 2 daughters of my own, 15 and 9 at the time, and the question I had to ask myself before I did anything with a survivor was, would I put my own daughters in this program? Is this what I would do for my own kids? Because if we're doing something that's secondary, we're offering someone who's already had tremendous tragedy in their life something less than. So one of the things that happened to me in this process was I went to other organizations and I said, when a survivor graduates from your program, what do they go on to do? What is their life like? Well, they go on to factories. They learn to do hair. They might make handicrafts. And I said, well, what does that future look like for them? Can they make a living? Is that sustainable? Is that dignifying? And in many cases, it's not. I'm just absolutely amazed by Sarah and the Made by Survivors organization, because that is a dignifying career field for these girls to be in, and it's something that they take great pride and artisanship in. So what we did is we created this idea that if we could inspire girls to dream and we could provide those opportunities for them, then girls would actually strive harder and achieve more and have a better quality of life after they left us. So the Shine Career School was my wife's sort of driving force behind getting people to come to Cambodia and help girls to acquire these skills. So what we did is we filed as a school. So we used it as a high school completion program so that girls can complete their high school educations. So as of 2013, we have 9 girls that are going to be graduating high school and going to university, which if that doesn't sound amazing to you, it is. Most of these girls have 1st to 3rd grade education, so the fact that they have the opportunity to go to higher education is really, really powerful. But as well, what we've done is we've invited people from all over the world to teach skills that aren't offered in Cambodia. There's, right now we're offering a photography course. Photography as a career, not as a hobby. And there are very few photographers in Cambodia, so all of a sudden these girls are now entrepreneurs. They're learning to become photographers so they can do wedding photographs, they can do family photographs, they're working for tourist agencies. They're developing career skills that they can actually take out and make a living and have a dignified life that never identifies them as a survivor, ever. So those are the 4 programs. What I'd like to do is share with you a video. I always like to see things visual. I'll just state the obvious. This was filmed last summer. I had more hair. Fair enough.
Simply removing a girl from harm's way doesn't right the wrong of her traumatic experience. When a girl is rescued from a life of exploitation and abuse, she has immediate practical needs. There's safety, shelter, therapy, love, and eventually, she's going to need job training and an education. However, for real transformation to take place, she needs a restoration of hope. From the day that a girl arrives at the Transitions Dream Home, she's brought into a family-like setting where she can feel safe and is safe. Girls are given the space to express themselves and are given a chance to invest in their own future through education and vocational training. See, we encourage our girls to develop their own unique interests, whether that's pursuing a higher education or learning a job skill for a real and sustainable future. We want them to be inspired and empowered to thrive. Transitions, we take trauma therapy extremely serious. We believe that assessing a girl's psychological and emotional needs is critical to being successful in developing a care plan. And the program that we offer is really about assessing and providing girls with regular therapy, monitoring what's happening, so that we know how girls are making progress with the program.
Regular counseling session is very important for girls in this program. Though they have a lot of problems in the past, there is a lot of trauma experience, a lot of sexual abuse, a lot of stigma. We have a safe place and safe environment for the girls to come and share.
I think that Transitions is extremely ambitious because the entire staff here is part of a treatment team. That every single relationship and every single interaction that's happening between staff and these girls is part of a restorative process for them.
We're seeing that fewer than 10% of our graduates fall back into exploitation, meaning that girls are not re-trafficked, re-exploited, or voluntarily engaging in commercial sex. This really sets Transitions apart in our field. By analyzing the physical and psychological outcomes of our programs, we're able to innovate and improve what we're doing.
IJ Young has partnered closely with Transitions for the last 6 years, and are so grateful for just the effective and quality services that we have seen through the programming and transitions.
We believe that our rigorous residential programming, comprehensive care planning, holistic therapy, electronic case management system, we believe that all of this centers on providing quality, individualized care for each of our girls. We can't risk doing this halfway. We need to offer the best that we can in order to give our girls the opportunity to make the transition from being rescued to being restored.
All right. So that was actually filmed on site, and those are our staff, our girls, but we don't show any of their faces. One of the things that I really want to leave each of you with is what survivors need in terms of, and particularly speaking of children that are involved in sex trafficking. One of the things that most people don't understand is that these are kids that are extremely trauma bonded to their traffickers, their pimps, their perpetrators in their lives. Because of those backgrounds I shared with you, that composite of growing up around constant abuse and a cycle of violence, that seems very normal to girls. When girls are referred to our program, they come kicking and screaming and spitting and cussing. There's no running into our arms and saying, "Thank you so much, you rescued me." They're wondering why in the world we tore them from the people that love them in some perverse and horrible and abusive way. And what it takes is removing a child from that environment and deprogramming them from that trauma bond in order for you to actually begin to break through to the person that's deep inside of there. Any of you that know anything about trauma, it's a dissociation of physical and emotional worlds. There's a total disconnect. And so oftentimes girls will put themselves in unsafe situations and not even realize that they're unsafe. And so as you guys are considering how to serve the needs of survivors, particularly with children, until we get that process done, what will end up happening is you will ask that youth over and over, "Do you want my help?" "No, I don't want your help." What would you like to do?" Well, they'd like to go right back to their pimp and continue doing what they're doing because it's the only thing that they know. And I can tell you from experience that when that trauma bond is broken, a light comes on that never goes back off. One of the things that we do is we take girls through different phases of psychoeducation and the whole idea of understanding what exploitation is. When they get it, it's a deep, deep ocean. These girls will have to really do some self-seeking and some deep trauma work to be able to come out of the other end of that and feel good again, because they realize their entire life has been this cycle of violence and abuse, not just the trafficking itself. In fact, oftentimes what happens is girls are able to do a trauma narrative and say, "Oh, this is what happened in my trafficking circumstance." But the hardest part is getting over is the betrayal of people in their lives that they trusted over and over again, and their inability to see that the people that they trusted most were the people that betrayed them the most. So when we start looking at the other needs, there's physical needs. So 98% of the girls that we see have pelvic inflammatory issues. That means that they're going to have reproduction issues later in life. So they're going to need a lot of medical attention, counseling and advisement in terms of their own bodies and how to care for themselves and what kinds of issues they're going to be facing. A lot of the girls that we see are dealing with drug-resistant strains of STIs, so gonorrhea and syphilis and all that fun stuff. As well as just the marks themselves of trafficking. These girls at 16, 17 years old, their bodies have been through what I went through in 8 years of the Marine Corps. I mean, their knees are shot. Many of them have chronic illnesses like fibromyalgia or other chronic pain issues, as well as the emotional issues. Many of these girls have had to manipulate their entire lives. So earlier it was mentioned that a lot of these girls present as completely functional teenagers. They absolutely do. They've learned to be chameleons in any environment that they need to be. And I'm telling you this because in working with survivors, I realize that our goal is I want to get to the authentic, genuine self of that girl. I want to help her find her own soul again and reconnect her emotions and her body so that she can be a whole person. And so that takes a process. And it's an ongoing process. I won't tell you that it's short. But I will tell you that we can't cut corners in terms of the care that we provide and how we execute the programs that we use in serving these young women. So what's happened is we've got this great program in the United States. We've got a great reputation. We've helped countries all over the world, as Amy mentioned. But one of the things that really got under my skin was we started looking at this issue in the United States in 2007. And as we started looking around, we realized that there's very few programs serving the needs of underage girls here in the United States. We're trying to use a lot of ad hoc services, but in almost every state, we are utilizing what I call the funnel of failure. And it is that we rescue these girls, they go to our child protective services, they put them in foster care. In 48 hours, they're back with their pimp, being trafficked again. The police go out, they rescue them, they bring them back, they go to DHS, they go to foster care, 48 hours, they're back with their pimp. Does that seem like an adult decision to send a child through a constant funnel of cyclical violence over and over again? What is it? Isn't it the definition of an insanity, doing the same thing over and over again and getting the same result? We're not looking seriously at what's needed. We've been having meetings with juvenile judges around the country and getting them to look at laws that are already in place in order for us to properly adjudicate these youth to get them the help that they need. So hopefully during the Q&A period we can address some of this. So anyway, what I wanted to do is leave you with a sense of hope in helping these young women because they can. I was told that it would take years and years, these girls would never accomplish anything. In the time that I've been doing this, we now have a success rate of over 94%. 94% of the girls that graduate from this program will never, ever, ever be re-trafficked, re-exploited, or abused. Many of them are giving... Many of them are giving back. We have a yoga instructor that spends 2 days of the week. She leaves her studio and she teaches to disadvantaged kids in disadvantaged neighborhoods, telling them how to stay safe, how to deal with domestic violence, how to get help when they need it. We have one graduate that has worked her way up like Claude and Claude. She now works as a therapist for an organization on the Thai-Cambodian border. She actually works with sex trafficking victims. We have a young girl that's an elementary school teacher. Another young girl that's selling dermatology products in China, so she travels from Vietnam and China all the time. These are dignifying futures, and that's what we're hoping for. See, this is an issue, so we come here, we hear about this, it's an issue. It's not an issue, it's an issue that's about people. At the other end of this is a human being with a name and an identity and a future, and we have to help them rediscover that future. Because if we don't, one of the things that we missed in the abolitionist movement was that we were looking to free people from something. We didn't ask what we were freeing them to. Freedom without a future is just another form of slavery. We have to look at giving real hope and real futures to the victims of human trafficking if we're truly going to see this come to an end. So with that, I'll leave you and thank you very much.
Good evening, children, youth, ladies and gentlemen. I'm from Nepal. I'm already introduced. I have 16 slides, and I probably take not more than 25 minutes. There are 3 segments in my presentation. First is I'm going to talk about forms of trafficking and slavery that exist in my country, and two other segments are my involvement in rescuing victims or survivors from servitude and trafficking and rehabilitation of them back to their own habitat. So that's what my presentation is going to be. And first of all, I would like to thank some people here, because whatever my organization does in Nepal, and credit goes to a local person from Mijula as well, Dr. Kimber Mackey. If she has not chosen to do her PhD on polyandry in Humla, Nepal, then we would not have ended up working in Humla and helping all those 20,000 people every year. So thank you, Kimber. And I'm going to start my presentation from here. Okay, just to give you an idea where Nepal is, because I found like some people, when I was talking like some people that really don't have idea where the Nepal is. So Nepal is located just in between India and China and Tibet, and there is no more Tibet in the global map. So I just added Tibet in there. So Nepal is known for something like Buddha's birthplace Lumbini, Mount Everest, Himalayas, and brave Gorkha soldiers. I don't know whether to proud or not, but these are the things Nepal is known for. But Nepal is one of the poorest country in the world in terms of economy, money economy. Nepal is one of the poorest country and one of the remotest country. And my organization works in the remotest district of that remote country. So this is what it is. Just to give you an idea, the trafficking, probably Nepal is the country where trafficking existed since very long. Before 50s, there was in-country trafficking of the girls. It's a pretty interesting country. We had a king running the country. At the same time, king means it's a dynasty. King's son will be king, you know that. But there is something interesting is that prime minister's son also becomes prime minister. The system was like that. We were ruled like that for 104 years, till 1950, for 101 years. And that's called Rana regime, Rana dynasty, who used to rule our country. And I'm from a village where they used to take girls from the mountain as a domestic worker in their palaces. We have lots of palaces, British-looking palaces in Kathmandu, and they used to take girls from, especially girls, from my village. And my village is very, badly known for girl trafficking, where I belongs to. And girls were taken for their domestic, as a domestic servant, as a domestic servitude, and we say endangered, bonded. You pay like 7,000 rupees, and you get the girl for a year. 7,000 rupees means it's like a $70 a year. So this is how this trafficking started before 50s. And in 50s, what happened, there was a democratic movement in Nepal, and then Rana regime was thrown out of the country. And when Rana regime thrown out of the country, what happened is that they went to India. They migrated to India with huge amount of their resource, money, and everything. When they got migrated in the places like Calcutta, Patna, Mumbai, Delhi, they migrated with their servants, with the girls who were they bought from the villages. And when their economic condition gone really bad in India, these girls were thrown out of the homes, and only options left for those girls were prostitution in these big cities. This is how the prostitution of Nepali girl in Indian brothels started. So then, Nepali girls, they are different looking than Indian people. So there was, from that point, there was a demand in the Indian brothels of the Nepali girls. So they used to pay high amount than any other girls in the region for the Nepali girls. So this is how, the brokers, mediators, traffickers started, trafficking the girls from Nepal. And it's a very, I'm ashamed to say, like, there are some villages, the fathers, they send their daughters in the brothels. for their better economy. So this is how, the girls were sold in India. So I'm just giving some background there. And there are other forms of, when democracy came in Nepal, there were we formed an organization called SARC in South Asian region. And we're supposed to have a kind of, good agreement between the countries to stop the girl trafficking, inter-country girl trafficking. But still the scenario is that, every year girls are being trafficked. There is other phenomenon started in late 90s, in 90s, and after 2000, huge number of Nepali youth and girls are being, being hired in Gulf countries as a laborers. Whether to say this is trafficking or not is pretty difficult, because there is no a clear definition of trafficking so far for me, because you go for an employment to the Gulf countries, your passport is seized by your employer, and you are bound to stay there for at least 2 years. And you can imagine a person from mountain, a cold weather like Mijula, in 50 degrees in Gulf countries, outside, working there, and I'll go for figure later on. Lots of people, now the huge media like BBC is saying like this is the modern day slavery started from Nepal and other countries as well in Gulf countries. So another form of, we say slavery and also in-country trafficking. This is the in-country trafficking within Nepal. This is something I involved from 2004. Just Amy said, I'm involved in this movement, and how I got involved in this movement is that I was traveling to my project area. I was working with Save the Children. I was traveling in my project area, and suddenly we found a girl working in a tea shop with a lot of wounds on her hands, and she was washing the dishes in that tea stall. And then we saw a little beautiful girl, like 7 years old, and then we just could not resist. And we were 3 people, and we just could not resist, and we simply asked why this girl is from, because I'm from Save the Children, so I had some sensitive kind of mind and eyes, and then I was just behind the shopkeeper, and then I asked how this girl is here. And then when I got that story, that was scary, that he paid like a 5,000 per year to his father and brought this girl in the bondage from another town to work as a slave. She's literally slave, not going to the school, and she had a kind of really, really bad health condition. And on that day, we 3 people decided, let's bring this girl in our car and send this girl back to her home. So literally, we paid 5,000 rupees to the shopkeeper, and we found other 5 girls in the area. So we collected 6 girls from that locality and put it in our car and drop on her home. So this is how this movement is started, and I'm from the beginning in this movement. This movement was like a national, it got national movement in 2013. It took like around 10 years to become a national movement. Government came up with the policy, and they made a policy. The court declared that this is illegal practice. This is how we started. Dozens of, more than 20 organizations joined this movement and started freeing these girls from throughout the country. And around 19,000, above 19,000 girls are rescued from this, slavery. And interesting thing about this slavery is that these 20,000 girls, Nepal has 125 languages and 125 ethnicity. 92 official ethnicity we have in Nepal. But this 20,000 girl is solely from one ethnicity called Tharu. They live in flatland in Nepal. And how this is started is pretty interesting. How development can go wrong. you know, eradication of malaria was pretty big kind of job for international and government and national organization in Nepal. We started malaria eradication, you know, spreading all these things in the, you know, in the ground everywhere, households. When malaria was eradicated, people from mountain started migrating to the flatland. Actually, this Tharu community used to live in a flatland, and they are malaria-resistant tribe. They don't get malaria. So what happened when malaria is eradicated? Before malaria, only Tharus were living there. After malaria, what happened? A lot of people, educated people, or rich people, higher caste people, started moving to the flatlands. And within 30 years, all the people in that flatland, Tharu people, lost their land, and they became bonded labor of the people who got migrated in those areas. So this is how. And their daughters were kind of, when the rich people or landlord, new landlord, when their daughters get married, they used to send one Tharu girl as a gift to her, you know, when she get married in the other places. This is how this Kamlari system took place. And I'm using all this photo with the consents of, you know, the people. I know all the people, the photo I'm using, and with their consent, because they were survivor, now they are activists. They are project manager in these areas. And we look after the girls, their education, we support their vocational education and all this. Some are nurse there, some are project manager, some are activists, you know, some are in the international arena, some are in the international movie event. So, you know, this movement is supported by the media throughout the globe. You know, when we started the movement, I was surrounded by American journalists like Christian Science Monitor. You know, they came all the way to Nepal, you know, talked to me and reported here that this practice existed. So all people contributed. This movement became big. In 2013, late 2013, all these girls came to the street. Those rescued girls came to the street in Kathmandu, surrounded the parliament, and got the policy, and formally freed the girls. Now it's believed that, you know, we don't have exact figure, but 675 girls only left to be rescued. So we need to rescue only 675 girls left. Above 19,000 are already rescued from this kind of servitude and trafficking. So credit goes to Nepali government also. They willingly, and then the girls who are rescued, they surrounded, and government also responded with the policy, with the money. Government provides education facility for these girls now. Okay, other phenomenon of trafficking in Nepal is believed that, you know, there is no exact data, but it's estimation data, and we officially use this data. You know, around 50,000 women and girls working in the cabin restaurants, massage parlors, and dance bar, and you know that, you know about sex tourism, and Nepal is a big tourist venue, sex tourism, and in-country sex tourism. And you can imagine cabin restaurant, massage parlor. These are like what's called, brothels are illegal in Nepal, and these, parlors and massage parlors are pretty legal. So this is how they are running this business. And if you look at the figure, 12% of them are 12 to 13 years old, 25%, 14 to 15, 16%, 16 to 17 years, girls are in this industry in Kathmandu and other cities. So this is another form of in-country trafficking of the girls, and mainly girls are trafficked from the mountains to the cities. There is another phenomenon. I said I earlier said that that the girls, Nepalese girls, are trafficked in India, and Shera Simons, she talked about that just recently. And the estimated data is 5 to 10,000 girls every year is trafficked to Indian brothels. And it's believed that now 1,000 to 2,100 girls are in the sex trade or sex brothels or sex slavery, we say. They are in India. That's the big thing, when I heard the word human trafficking, I heard this word very recently, probably 2 years. I used to hear only the girl trafficking when I was a child in the primary school. The girl trafficking was, when you ask any children in any school, when I was a child, do a drama, then all drama is around girl trafficking in Nepal. It was like that. Everybody does whatever skit or drama, whatever you do was girl trafficking everywhere in Nepal. So that means you can imagine how big issue it is. People working in this sector became a CNN hero in 2010, and all this, probably you have heard about that. So this is the big issue in Nepal, exists since before 50s. And there is still a huge demand from Indian brothels of Nepali girls. And the trafficking still exists despite very strict border guarding, despite very strict government policy. It's the girl trafficking is very, very, in Nepal it's considered as a rare crime, but again the practice exists. Because Nepal and India, we share 1,800 kilometers long open border. You don't need visa. Other phenomenon I just talk about, girls and boys going to the Saudi Arabia, Malaysia, Hong Kong, Russia, Pakistan, all these countries as a laborer. And estimated figure is that every day 1,500 Nepalese youth leave the country for an employment, every day. And then our population is 26 million. So we were saying, like, if it goes like this for 7 years, every day 1,500, then you can imagine how many people left in Nepal. And they are leaving the country because what you have to understand is Nepal faces a big wound after Maoist civil war in Nepal, 12 years long Maoist civil war. They jeopardized all the development activities, stopped everything there, and no employment, no economic growth. Nepal is considered to be a second largest water resource in the world, and we have not utilized even 1% of the potential. So this is how it is. So no employment, people go for their survival and employment outside the country, especially in the Gulf. And there was still every day there is a big kind of news that about this modern slavery. Nepali workers locked in the stadium, World Cup football stadium, and they cannot come back home. Their passport is seized by the company, and they are just like a slave. And a lot of media internationally raising this issue, and it's believed that above 3.5 million Nepalese are in Gulf working in that condition. So far, 984 youth, they died, and every day you see 1 or 2, box of dead body in our international airport coming from the Gulf. In the news, you can see like a newspaper prints that photos every day. There was 3 dead body in international airport today. So this is how this is another phenomenon, and impact of that is very, very difficult to find youth in the villages. Nepali villages are being empty because empty of youth. Only old man or child left in the households, and then youth are every day 1,500 going means the villages are getting empty every day. Okay, I'm going to talk about a little bit, very briefly about our ISIS experience, my organization experience on this is very, we think this is very special experience, the way we managed lives of, we don't say this is project, this is the life management, not a project management. That's what we say. This 136 traffic kids who, this 136 traffic kids, we manage their life directly, still managing their lives directly. They are like a family member. They are with ISIS. They're living with ISIS. So this 136 kids I'm talking about, this 136 kids were trafficked out of Humla. This, I'm just talking about 136 kids, but it's estimated that, above, 15,000, in the Maoist war, above 15,000 killed, and a large number of, the villages were like chaotic. It was a war situation. The parents used to feel like if I keep my child at home, then one day the Maoist army will come and collect him as a child soldier. So parents were so panicked to keep their own kid at home. So whoever they wanted to send out of the villages. So there is one district, I said, like the most remote district. We have 75 districts in Nepal. And the district I'm talking about is the 75th remote out of 75 districts. So this is the most remote, There are 75 districts, and this is the most remote district in the country. And there are 2 districts left without road connection, and this is the one district doesn't have road connection from the capital city. So, after in the Maoist war, parents wanted to send their children out of the district. They wanted to pay money to send their kids out of the district. And there were some traffickers, a mediator, middle person. It's a man, so I can say middleman. It's a middleman. Actually, he made this a very good business. Take 100,000 from the parents, collect the kids. He started collecting the kids. Around 1,500 kids he collected from the parents, took money, and brought the kids in Kathmandu, in other cities in Nepal, and also in India. He trafficked them and abandoned them in the street or somewhere in a very bad condition, like in the store. So they were living this kind of life in the cities of Kathmandu. So with the help of police, with the help of government, with the help of Child Welfare Board, we rescued 136 kids from one district, Humla. So what we did is we had no idea how to run child center program. Though I was kind of Save the Children person, I was not with ISIS by that time. I was coming, same year I came, but we were not child specialized organization, right? So we had to learn everything. We had to train people. We had to train ourselves. So we set up 10 temporary children homes in Kathmandu, recruited 80 staff, started training them, and then, we immediately enrolled all these 136 kids. And we needed a very, very family-type, cozy homes for these kids. They were emotionally damaged, physically damaged. They were damaged all the way, every way they can. They were begging in the street. They were ill. Some of them died. So they were really, really in a kind of pathetic condition. We really literally had to fix everything, from the physical condition to emotional condition, everything. So we worked with them. I'm going in more detail tomorrow in the workshop about that. So we started tracing their family. We had no idea where their families are. So we spent 1.5 years, around 2 years, to find their family. We walked in the mountains. There are some people who wrote book out of that travel, a very popular, best-selling book in that travel. So some people wrote that kind of book in that travel. So we had to send our partner and our people for 1.5 years in the mountain, walking, finding the family. And we were so lucky with the photos and videos of the kids. And it took us 1.5 years to find the family. Luckily, we found all the family. And we installed a toll-free telephone in the district headquarters, and we asked parents to take the legal guardianship of their parents so that will help their education. And at the same time, we'll provide them psychosocial support, health support, even food support in many cases. I'm going pretty quickly. At the same time, we are working in the ground. What we believe is that unless the family is livable, unless you fix the family, unless you make the family a fit for children, we say like a world fit for children. That for us means a family fit for children. So to make a family fit for children, we had a long kind of decade-long projects in the community, fixing the family, fixing the schools, fixing the health post, giving family income generation, training family on food security, hygiene, drinking water. So we worked in 20 different villages to fix all those infrastructure so that when we send kids back to the family, they have basic minimum service available. So simply you cannot send, what we believe is if you send them back, they will be re-trafficked, they will be in more risk. So rather than putting them in the risk for the second time, it can be more worse. It's better to make sure that when you send them back, they are safe, sound, and healthy. So we work in the community. Okay. So we decided to deinstitutionalize because we believe that there are lots of institutions in Nepal, children's homes, and then children grown up in the institution are not, have more, sense of dependency. And we want to give, we really want to, their childhood is damaged, and what we really want is that, these kids to have a normal life with their parents and in the schools where we built. So we're sending them back. These kids, this 136 kids, 5 of them are totally with the parents, 32 are now adults. They are leading, some are doing universities, some are already working. So far, 100% kind of result that nobody is unemployed or left. And we provide them vocational education. And, these youths are pretty kind of, what we feel like they are going to be a good human resource for that, too remote, highly isolated district. And 70 kids are reintegrated with the family. We support them. We still have case workers managing, doing individual child plan every 3 months. We have 29 young adults pursuing their college. And 100 are trained with a vocational skill, and they easily can have job in the country. They don't have to go to abroad or a Gulf country. So over the last 8 years, we did lots of training seminars to capacitize our staff, children, and strengthen schools so that they are child friendly. And thank you. I just would like to, at the end, I would like to thank Dr. Kim Abraham for inviting me and Team Mansfield, and everybody. Thank you everybody for listening to me. I'm here for your questions.
We're going to take questions now, so if anybody does have a question, there's a mic over here in the aisle, so please come up for questions. Go ahead, please. If you could just please stand up and project. Thank you.
Sorry, I was going by mouth, so it sounds muddled. But what do you do in terms of your STAR project and those kind of projects? Do you follow them, follow up with them when they're in their independent living situations? Did you hear all of that? Do you want to repeat it?
Yes. No, I heard all of that. Yeah, one of the critical things for us in terms of measuring success is that we do a mandatory of 3 years of follow-up with the girls after they've graduated and gone on to independent living situations. What we've been really blessed by is that about 65% of all of the girls 8, 9 years later are still coming back and sharing with us how their future is gone. So we just had one of our young ladies brought her husband and her 2-year-old son to come and see us. So yeah, we do extensive follow-up.
That's great. Awesome.
Thank you.
I also had a question for you. Can you briefly talk about what's your clinical model when you do counseling? I heard you mention narrative therapy, and then what's kind of your approach? Empowerment, strength-based?
Yeah, so we definitely have a strength-based approach. What we found is that we really needed a lot of entry-level tools to doing therapy. So we do a lot of art therapy, play therapy, narrative stuff. And so what we're using as kind of our modality is we started out using trauma-focused CBT as a baseline model, but it was really, TFCBT was developed for returning war veterans. It was really addressing kind of post-traumatic stress disorder. And so we're using something that was developed by John Briere and Cheryl Langtree, which is a specific program for adolescent teens that's similar to that baseline model, but it has a lot of, what would I call it, different scales and assessments that we can use to find particular interventions for the girls. So I could get you more specific information if you're interested. One of the things that we have done as an organization is that each contract that ends with our organization, we ask our clinical director to find someone they want to work for. And so we have an extremely talented clinical director who I can't say enough good about her, and she's just really transformed what we're doing as an organization. Yeah.
Hi. I may have missed it, but I was wondering what your initial action for like saving these girls is. I'm sure it's really dangerous to like encounter their pimps and people that work in sex trafficking. So what's your initial action to save them?
One of the things that we decided to do as an organization, my background is in security and intelligence, and I've worked as an investigator. We decided to remove ourselves by several degrees from any kind of recovery operation. So we work with the National Human Trafficking Task Force, police and human rights organizations. They do all of the child recovery operations. We only work with girls once they've gone to the Ministry of Social Affairs, which is the child protection arm, and have girls referred. So we have very little interaction with traffickers. We have had some pimps that have showed up at shelters. We've had family members that have gotten information and shown up at some of our projects. But we've got a really great relationship with a lot of the local police. And so anytime that's happened, we've just called them and they've been pressured out. We did have one court case that involved Russian mafia, and I had black SUVs parked outside of the shelter. That was a little nerve-wracking for our staff, but there was a great response by the U.S. Embassy, and so that came to a halt.
Just say something about the level of self-hate that goes on.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I think when you're talking about sexual exploitation in particular, there's a tremendous amount of shame that goes on with girls, and it's not on the surface. What typically happens is when girls come in and they take their first psychological assessments, trauma is really low, anxiety is really low, stress, depression, but so is self-esteem. And one of the things that we found is once girls begin to really, it begins to register. Let me give you a startling statistic. This hit me as a man about 8 years ago when I did the numbers on this. If a girl is in a brothel for a year and she only sees 3 customers a day, do you realize that's 1,040 serial rapes that girl's going to endure in a year? So for many of the girls that we've worked with, they've been in these experiences for multiple years. And so you're undoing all of that. So the level of shame and self-loathing, particularly when it comes to body issues, identity issues. We've had a lot of girls that when this dawns on them, they cut all their hair off. They want to look like a boy. They want to identify as being lesbian. They are trying to shift that identity away from those experiences. So there's a deep amount of shame, and a deep amount of stigma. And earlier there was a comment about Thailand and how there was very little stigma in returning home, and I completely would disagree with that. I think in some circumstances there's a level of honor in Asian society for a girl to serve her family in that way, but there's still a great amount of self-hatred that I think girls have to wrestle with and work through in order to come out the other end. Yeah. Did that answer your question?
So these were two really remarkable stories of both of your organization's success. And so my question is, due to that success rate, the 136 girls you've reintegrated into the Nepalese society and the 94 success rate of your program, is anyone paying attention to that? And are your programs scalable? And are other organizations using your model at all because this is such a rampant issue? So I'm just curious if you could speak to that, both of you.
Yeah, sure. I think we believe that this program is replicable and scalable. We can scale up these things. Mainly the experience, like how you run institutional care, how you psychosocially support, like a counseling support, psychosocial support. All these models, manuals, trainings can be replicable. But the project itself, I would say, like this situation would not happen in the world. But if that happens, we have all the manuals, models, modules ready. How to support kids, especially in this kind of circumstance. So I strongly believe that there are some quality of the projects, like psychosocial support and other care, how to run institutional care, how to protect kids from the risk, and child protection model. All this can be replicated, I guess.
Yeah, from our end, we had other countries coming to visit and take a look at what we were doing. And to answer your question, we've created a curriculum that we believe is extremely scalable. We're actually looking to implement this in Tennessee, which Amy kind of gave away. I'm in the middle of moving my house to Nashville. We're going to be opening a similar project like this in Nashville, Tennessee. So it is replicable. One of the things that we've seen, though, is as we were asked by different countries to come and help them develop a similar system, is that there's a cost to doing it, and it's not just a monetary one. It comes in effort and consistency, and we just have not seen a lot of organizations that are willing to make that level of sacrifice to do a lot of what we're doing. Our staff work extremely hard to do the things that we're doing, and there's a lot of moving parts. So it really takes a lot of dedication, and we're trying to sort of pre-review organizations before we go in and try to implement this and make sure that they have the right infrastructure to be able to carry out a program like this one.
First, I'd like to thank you both and your organizations for the work that you provide. It's been a wonderful learning experience, and I thank you both very much. My question would kind of follow up with the previous question, is how do we reel in this in Montana and in the United States? I work in emergency department. I'm a sexual assault nurse examiner, and I see the CPS circle. I see the same people circle in and out, in and out. How do we break that cycle?
So, yeah, one of the questions I had asked someone earlier is, like how many CSEC, I use the term CSEC here in the United States, which stands for Commercial Sexual Exploitation of Children. It's a national classification for sex trafficking victims. I asked how many CSEC victims are here in Missoula, Montana, and they were like, I don't know. I don't know there's ever been a case. And so what I suggest to communities is that you kind of have to reverse engineer this a little bit. You really need to get all of the stakeholders together in a meeting, either through individual meetings or a group meeting. And I would suggest that you have with you a juvenile judge who works in your youth courts, your probation department, anyone from your juvenile jail system, law enforcement, whether that's local PD or FBI, your DA's office, your social services. So it may be, you may have multiple child protection arms here, but I would have them all present. And what we started to do is we asked each of those parties what they were seeing in terms of sex trafficking victims, and you'll be amazed at what is actually going on. What we found in most states that we went to is in talking to the DA's office, we would go to the state's attorney's office, we'd say, how many trafficking cases have you tried in your state? And they've been like 0. We go to the DA's office and we said, do you have sex trafficking in your county? And they said, oh, absolutely, we've tried 13 of them, but they were tried as compelling prostitution, or pimping charge or solicitation charge, not trafficking. Still trafficking, but they didn't feel like it had enough teeth to take it up to the federal level and push it through as a trafficking case. So I would start with getting those parties around the table and really asking them, like, where are these victims and what are you seeing and how many of them are there? Because you really need to get a sense of magnitude first before you know how to respond. And once you have magnitude, then you can start coming up with a game plan. Is it serious enough that it warrants something specific? Do you need specific protocols? Are there things that are being done in other cities that might be healthy for Missoula as opposed to Billings or Bozeman? Those are the things that we always suggest. I'm in the middle of doing a white paper for Santa Clara County because it needs a completely different protocol than Oakland and San Francisco are using, because it has some really unique situations in terms of how youth come into the system. But as a first responder, it's also asking, your organization, is there a screening process for identifying trafficking specifically? Because usually there's sexual abuses in there. Are you a mandatory reporter? Yes. Okay, so typically sexual abuse is in there. And there are some questions that you can add to that screening process that would allow you to identify whether or not someone's potentially a trafficking victim.
And, to follow up on it, the cases that we see, 12 to follow up on that, the cases that we see, that age range are, 11 to 15, they're not very forthcoming with a lot of information. So how do you, as a first responder, when you see, people that come into your program, how do you, is that just something we would just have to mandatorily report and follow up and?
For you, I think it is, because that report goes to CPS or whatever your child protection agency is, and they determine the course of action. Is that how it works? See, I'm really fortunate because our girls come pre-screened. I already know they've been trafficked. I don't even have to ask. We're just going to work out all the details. So we're in a much different situation. And in that particular situation, I think the tragedy is you report it, it's going to go to your child protection agency, and they're not really going to have too many options in terms of where that kid can go for help. Hopefully, it would trigger an investigation and they'll respond and get the child out of the home and hopefully begin a police investigation. But at this point, that's about the most you can do. Until there's a more holistic approach and a task force here that's working towards some kind of protocol that would happen for first responders, it would be more intensive than what we currently have. Yeah.
Gentlemen, what type of message would you like to leave with the audience? So, just in Missoula, what can you do? Obviously, they've had some experience. This is not working. I'm just asking, as a message that you want to leave with the audience tonight, what is that final thought message that you will say to the people here in Missoula? And if we can start with this.
I think, so far from my side is that, I'm from developing country, third world, and, institution like, Montana University and people in Montana. I think, what this kind of institution can do is to produce a capable or capable plus sensitive human resource that can serve or facilitate or help third world country in a great manner with the real development work. That's what the message I want to give.
I'd say to you, for a group of you to come and spend an entire day listening to this all day long, there's obviously a desire and an empathy inside of you guys to make a difference in the lives of victims of trafficking. And I don't know what the specific circumstances are here locally, but I would say that you guys need to take the passion and not allow it to become paralysis. A lot of times we get this information and it just becomes just kind of overwhelming. We go into kind of a numb state. And I would encourage you to take that paralysis, put that aside, and allow that passion to move forward to really serving people. Remembering this is not an issue, this is about individuals. And so whether you're serving them locally or internationally, to remember the people that are behind this and help those people find real healing and real hope in their lives.
Could I just make a comment really quickly? Speaking to that passion, I just want to say I'm one of those people who experienced a great deal of passion when I first learned about human trafficking about 3 years ago. And I learned a lot about it and connected with different organizations and came up with a project and became overwhelmed and went into paralysis. So that can happen no matter how passionate you feel at an initial moment. And I'm grateful that you've brought this conversation out and reminded me of my responsibility. Thank you.